This past week, Sony bought Destiny 2 developer Bungie for $3.6 billion. It's the latest in a number of high profile acquisitions by video game publishers and console makers. Microsoft has scooped up many developers over the last few months and years, recently buying Bethesda for over $7 billion, and then the massive takeover of Activision Blizzard for $70 billion. By comparison, Sony paid $3.6 billion for Bungie, and also ended up not with exclusive access to Bungie properties as part of the deal. Just Destiny 2 will remain multi-platform, and they have confirmed that future Bungie games will also be multi-platform. This has led to some analysis I've seen that Sony overpaid for Bungie. This comes from analyst Michael Pachter, that he believes that Sony paid way too much for Bungie at that price point, which equates to about $4 million per developer, since Bungie has 900 developers. He cites that Respawn sold for a couple $100 million a few years ago to EA, and they generate a lot more revenue than Bungie. And he says that he doesn't understand this deal, and that he thinks it was a move of desperation by Sony to try and compete with Microsoft in terms of just kind of scooping up what developer they could to try and compete with Microsoft buying up everything. I don't agree with this analysis, because I think you can make the argument that this is a premium price point for Bungie. I think it is a high price, and yet I think the market kind of reflects the realities of how coveted these kind of high-profile, high-talent developers have become. There's another example where Sony bought Insomniac Games a couple years ago for $200 million something dollars, and they have produced a number of hugely, explosive hits for Sony ever since, for in all these different ways. And the market has changed as a result of this. People have realized that game developers are kind of a lot more valuable than people were giving them credit for, hence why these acquisition deals are going up and up and up. I guarantee you that the Bethesda deal and the Activision deal pushed Bungie's price up. Bungie does only make one game right now, whereas Bethesda has multiple IPs that can now be exclusive to Microsoft, and yet I do think something is being missed here by this kind of analysis, where Sony's not just buying Bungie to rake in, X amount of revenue from Destiny 2 and future games. This is a long-term, forward-thinking play about Sony realizing they cannot just keep only making exclusives just for, their PlayStation boxes, and they need to kind of expand as a publisher to have their games available on more platforms. We've seen this happen this year with supply shortages in the PS5, where Sony is hard limited by PS5 supply to the point where it's probably a little frustrating for them, because they are selling as many units as they possibly can, but Microsoft has a more robust infrastructure in place for distribution. Microsoft already owns some other multi-platform games like Minecraft, which are available everywhere. So I think this is Sony being forward-thinking. They have also said that this is a move about buying the talent of a developer, not just their IPs and their revenue generation. They have specifically said that they want Bungie to help teach their other first-party developers how to make live service games, manage live service games, and compete in that market. There have been a lot of earnings calls this week where every chart that comes out, there's a big chunk of the pie that is dedicated to DLC and live service revenue. This is something that Sony does not really have to the same extent. Sony is extremely good at making very high quality, high profile, award-winning single-player games, whether that's God of War, Spider-Man, Horizon, many games in this field, but they want to expand more into multiplayer, and they believe that Bungie is going to be one of the primary studios that can help them do that. So this deal is more than just about, buying Destiny, buying, a very specific game and revenue source. It is about planning for the future in a way that Sony has not really kind of shown that they're doing to this point. Like, they have kind of seemed to have been moving in the opposite directions in many ways, where they've increased the price point of their first-party games, while Microsoft has done more with Game Pass, and they have kind of kept making the same types of games over and over again instead of kind of expanding. So I do not believe this was a desperation move or anything. I think this was something that was in the works for a very long time. And it does sound strange on its face, and it does sound like a high price, but I think the more you actually stop and consider what is actually at play here and what Sony is actually getting out of this deal, the more it makes a lot of sense. And I really do believe that this is going to be a valuable partnership for both of these parties going forward.